Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is Asian Movie Pulse Interviews. We are here with David Verbeek today, director of the great film Dead and Beautiful. How are you today, David?
I'm very good, thank you. How about you?
I'm fine also. Are you in Taipei?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I actually had to reschedule this interview for 1 hour because I was stuck in traffic earlier today. I was having a meeting with a composer in Taichung, which is a bit in the south, and I was going back to Taipei. So I'm just out of a fierce traffic jam, but happy now to be here and talk to you.
Happy to have you. So this is actually my first question. How does one get from Amsterdam to Shanghai to Taipei shooting movies?
Well, with lots of flights and lots of jet lags, and especially and actually these days one doesn't get there because with all the pandemic lockdowns and restrictions also here in Taiwan, very severe, it's very, very hard to travel. So before the pandemic, I had quite a lifestyle of a lot of travel. Well, for about 15 years or so, I had been spending a lot of time in China and also in Taiwan. I've made several films here, and several times I've spent a year or so actually living in Shanghai and more recently in Taipei. So I went up and down a lot between Europe and here. But now with the pandemic, I had to choose where to be, and I was working on several things here, so I chose to be located in Taipei. And how it started, I think I was very interested in rapid social change, the fast changing of a society and what that does to people, what that does to individuals. One of my first films was in Rotterdam. I was about an office worker that worked too hard and that kind of got ahead of himself, and that suffered a burnout and couldn't work anymore. And as a consequence, he faced that he didn't really have a clear religion and he didn't have much family ties. And what the film really addressed was how the modern part of Holland had been changing, quite rapidly. And some people were just kind of exhausted of this change and a lack of culture. And then I started to realize when I was reading more about what was happening in China and in the cities there, that there, of course, the change is happening much faster. And that really inspired me to go and have a look in China and to see if I could maybe do a documentary about this. And so I went after the Film Academy, and it ended up actually turning into my first feature film, Shanghai Trance, a 2-hour movie, a fiction, which was the result of me living there for 3 years and kind of investigating what was happening in China, how quickly the city was changing, and how it affected the different economic classes in the city. And once I had kind of researched that and had lived through that, through friendships and relationships and everything, I thought I was finally ready to actually say something about it. So after a few years, I made that first film. That kind of became my connection to China. And I've made a few films in China and a few films in Taiwan right now. And how I finally ended up in Taiwan is I was working with a composer that I wanted to work with very much, called Ling Chang, and he also did the soundtrack for some filmmakers here in the region, both Jia Zhangke in China and Ho Shou-shen in Taiwan, that I admire. So I really wanted to work with him, and he agreed to. So I went to Taiwan to work with him, and that's how I discovered Taiwan. And that was like another very, very, for me, like an eye-opener, like what again, a different world that was from China. And I got more and more interested into it, and I started making movies here, and it actually changed my style of filmmaking again.
Is that style change important? Like, is it a choice, let's say, or a necessity for you?
Well, I don't know. It's more like a thematic change, you would say. I mean, first my first interest was to make films that were very much about the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time, and to capture something that's happening in a certain area at a certain age. So at first, it was my interest was very much to capture something sociologically. And later on, when I got more into the culture, and I got more into the contradictions in the culture and how strange it is from a Western perspective, my interest became more about exploring personalities psychologically. And a film, for example, like Are You There, which was my first film in Taiwan, that really explored also the cultural barriers, but also the confusion in the times we live in about reality and virtual contact. So the film took place in Second Life for a part, and on social media, and it dealt with a main character that was confused between his feelings towards a girl in real life, but it was different in the internet in Second Life, where they were having a virtual contact. My films became more surrealistic, and now with Dead and Beautiful, I've actually transformed that into actually playing with genre films. So this is my first venture into genre. I think that genre films in the last, I don't know, something like 10 years have also become more interesting, and have become more open to more artistic or art house influences. Um, so I thought I wanted to do something with the vampire genre, but I wanted to really do something new with it, and something that I maybe could bring to it with the style and the thematic interest that I had developed in my life in Asia. So finally, I came up with this story.
So what was the inspiration, though, behind the particular story?
The first inspiration was when I was living in China. I picked up on more and more stories and articles also in the news, and friends were talking about this generation of fu or dai, second generation rich, and there were all kinds of, you could see them also in the clubs, in the nightclubs. They would have tables in the VIP section where there would be like glass transparent bathtubs filled with bottles of champagne, and it was very extravagant. And at some point, this generation was really also by the government really labeled as kind of a problematic generation, because there was trouble with them. They were holding illegal Lamborghini car chases on the outskirts of town. Sometimes there would even be incidents where a pedestrian, a villager, would be killed in such a car race, and the car would not stop. It would be like a hit and run, and so this generation of super newly wealthy, because of course there's so much new money in China, that suddenly created a whole new kind of economic class of people that also were not familiar with having so much money. So it was all new to them, and especially their children grew up wealthy for the first time in their family history, and they had all kinds of problems adjusting to to how to take responsibility for that. And when I heard about this sociological phenomenon, I don't know how exactly it happened, but I was like, it just clicked with me. Like, if I would make a metaphor between bloodsuckers, vampires, literally, and the reputation this generation is developing, then I would have some kind of metaphor about the 99% versus 1%, and this whole struggle in the world. And as we developed the script, it became more and more of an international subject. Trump was elected for president. There were just more and more of these very this this generation of extreme wealth, and their behavior was more and more in the spotlight. So finally, it became a very international group of people in Taiwan instead of a group of Fu or Dai in China.
Mm-hmm. So you would say that these kind of billionaires, and particularly their children, are kind of metaphoric vampires, like they, I don't know.
Actually, as I was researching more, in China, they do call people Shishegui, vampire, blood-sucking ghost, who are who are extremely rich, which is also, of course, something where when you look at China, of course, this is very much a new generation, but. For also there, when I adapted the script specifically for Taiwan, and I was doing the research, I came across that there is a lot of land which has been taken from Aboriginal communities by real estate developers or industrial mega corporations, and these CEOs are sometimes also there are scandals with them about corruption and about how working class people or even Aboriginals have been have lost their land. So this struggle is real, and in protests, what they chant, that's a real thing. That they Shishagwe, like bloodsucker, bloodsucker, bloodsucker. So it's a real term. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, but have you actually met anyone or interacted with any billionaires, like Chinese ones, or?
I don't know billionaire, but millionaires, yes. Multi-millionaires, yes. And I have gone to these kinds of parties in Shanghai, and I have befriended, or I was with people that joined this table. So I've been in this company and of these kinds of people. Yeah, socially, yeah, on occasion. Especially in the years before and when I was starting to write the scenario. Yeah.
So would you say, like, particularly the beginning of the movie is like kind of realistic? Like these people go to a place and they demand others to leave so they can sit there. This is the way they conduct themselves in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely. I one thing I don't want to say is that all these rich people are like that. Of course, they're not. But this is definitely something that could happen. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. And okay, tell me a bit, how was it cooperating with this international cast in the film? Was it difficult having people from all over the world, essentially?
It was I mean, there were challenges in language because I wanted it to be an international group of people, so they all had to speak English, and that wasn't easy for all of them. So it was definitely, there was a strong focus on the set on how to manage the accent, the articulation, which is difficult. It's very difficult to act in a language which is not your own and pronounce it correctly, and at the same time act it correctly. So there were definitely issues like that. But I think that this cast really, I'm quite proud of the of what they have achieved as a group. It was really very much an effort of casting everyone in the role that they actually could relate to in some way. An example, Gijs Blom, who plays Mason. In the story, he is someone that flies in and, he's doing well, he's on top of the world, and he's kind of a little bit distant from the rest of this group, and he comes back. So in reality, Gijs is a Dutch actor who is, in fact, now in a few Netflix films and series while he's still going to acting school in Amsterdam. So he is this kind of actor on top of the world, breaking through, just flying in from the Netherlands to Taipei to do this film. And because he really has that status within the group of actors, it also felt that way, which helps me as a director to actually make this part of the group chemistry. Philip, who plays Bin Ray, in the film, he is a Chinese boy who only recently got rich and acquired his wealth much more recently. His family acquired his wealth much more recently than some of the others. So he is struggling really hard to keep up with the others, to impress the others, to show that he also knows what he's talking about. And I casted an actor for this role who actually is completely unknown. He's the most unexperienced, the youngest and most unexperienced actor of the group. So again, the reality of his situation as an actor in the group and the character that he portrays are aligned. And then there is Alexander and Lulu, who are both very well-known actors in Taiwan. So they have this kind of position, like, they are here, this is their place. So I think that helped a lot. And then of course we have Anastasia, who's played by Annie, who is actually a TV celebrity here in Taiwan, and she is always on TV game shows, and she's very active on social media. She has an Instagram account of a few 100,000 followers. She is quite close to the character in that sense also, which is a character obsessed with, how the world sees her, obsessed with getting acceptance from large group of people, getting likes. So again, and she had to really do her best to fit in with this film production, because in this film production it was more about acting and transforming into a character, and she's more used to being on game shows and basically mostly being pretty and being very smiley. So that was her journey, and the serious effort that she makes to achieve that, I think you can feel that in the film. So I think that it's primarily really a way of casting to make the group dynamic what it should be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very lucky with Annie. I was very lucky that someone like Annie, who is Russian, who can speak Russian, who can speak English, and speaks quite fluent Chinese, who is a celebrity here. When I first when we decided that we finally were going to shoot the film in Taiwan, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to find a Russian girl here that speaks Chinese and Russian and English. It's impossible. But then there was Annie, so quite lucky.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you tell me a bit about the cinematography? What was your purpose in the visual aspect of the film?
Of the cinematography?
Yeah.
The cinematography. Well, I mean, we had Jasper Wolf, who is a very experienced cinematographer and has kind of a style where he is usually very close to the characters. And I have a style in my films that was more distant and that was more wide shots, more long silences, more slow cinema. So what was really the purpose of the production is to kind of combine those two ways of looking to make one style. And that's what you see in the movie. You see this very anamorphic lenses, creating also this very luxurious feeling world. But at the same time, the camera is also quite handheld and it's quite close to the characters. So it's this kind of hybrid form.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and so your film will premiere in Shudder on November 4th. How do you feel about that? You think that these platforms like Shudder is like an outlet for filmmakers nowadays? Cinemas are closed. How do you feel about the whole thing?
Well, I mean, obviously this film did suffer a lot from the pandemic, because we were actually just finished with this film in editing wise when the pandemic started. It was really like end of 2019, beginning 2020 that the film was finished, and it's like, okay, let's find a good festival and let's go. And then now here we are 2 years later. So obviously the pandemic has been disastrous for filmmakers and also for this film. I think Shudder is a platform primarily for thrillers and horrors. And what I think is that this film so far, if you look at where it has been received well, who has written about it favorably, which festivals have screened it. This film somehow seems to be more popular with a genre audience. To my surprise, I have to say. But I think also that genre has changed in recent years. I think there are so many films that you could label genre, but that are in fact also art house films, and that are so something has been happening to the genre, to genre films. And I think that's very interesting, and also that's also one of the motivations why I wanted to play with genre. So this kind of warm welcome by genre festivals and audiences, and also by a genre platform, could actually turn out to be a very good thing. So yeah, I'm quite excited about the release. I think they are quite big, and I think the fact that it is going to be streaming there, you know, and it's going to be screening to an American audience, a UK audience, Australian audience. I think it's very. I'm very excited that it seems like a large audience will see the film, and since I come from quite an art house background, I make films that often have been critically acclaimed but haven't been seen by many. I think it's very refreshing and very exciting to see how this goes, and for me, it's all very new.
Okay, great. I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time, David. This is Asian Movie Pulse interview. This is Panos, and thank you very much for being here. Have a nice day, David.
Thanks, Panos.
Bye.
Bye-bye.